So today we're going to talk about how to transition from a one-man band to a cinematographer. Let's get into it. So the reason why this was an important video is because I understand that transition and how intimidating it can be and how you can easily get imposter syndrome when you're trying to transition from doing everything by yourself to now being a DP, where there's so much more that you have to learn, and nobody really teaches you that unless you're on set and you're going through it. And who wants to learn that on their first day of set? And so with this video, I just wanted to share my experience when I transitioned over to being a DP, but hopefully give you all the information so that you don't have to feel intimidated for not having it. So I want to go off some questions from an Instagram post that I put up, and a lot of people were asking me questions specifically about becoming a DP. And so hopefully for the rest of you all that this helps you if you are also interested in becoming a DP/cinematographer. The role of a DP is essentially the DP stands for Director of Photography. So you are pretty much the director of the principal photography, what we see. And when you think about director, you think about being over, even if you think about a director at a church, a director, wherever, you think about them pretty much being over a certain aspect. So when you're on set, the way it goes is, of course, you have people above the line. You have your director, you have your DP, and then from your DP falls the whole crew. So you have your director, you have your assistant director, and pretty much your director of principal photography. So you're working with the director to bring his vision to life, or whoever the writer, but his vision to life. And so he has a vision of how he wants it to go, and you're finding a way to bring that to life with all the technical aspects that you need to. So whether it is camera, whether it is lighting, all of those things, you're the visual person in charge of that. And that's the most basic way that I can explain it. And so a lot of people think a DP is somebody that just goes and they're the ones that's shooting on set. Most DPs are not going to be shooting on set. The higher you go as a DP and the bigger your crew, you don't even want to be behind the camera, because the reason why is you don't get to see everything that's happening in front of you if you have to focus on also shooting. Now, if it's a one camera shoot, then of course you can be behind the camera. But most times you're behind Video Village and you're being able to look at everything in its entirety. You're next to the director, making sure you all agree, talking about certain things, and again, bringing his vision to life through that communication with your team. I always say that the DP is the neck. So you have your director, which is the head, and then the DP is the neck. And from the neck, everything else is a part. Like, if you don't have a neck, you ain't got nothing else. Well, some people ain't got necks, but I'm just saying. So the DP is the neck. Then you have your camera team. Then you have your GAP, your G&E crew. And then you have, even the DP is even a part of post-production. Literally from start to finish, you are a part of every single process. You're connecting with the set designers. You're connecting with the production designers. You're connecting with the G&E team, which is lighting. You're connecting with the camera team. You're over the camera team. You're connecting with the directors. You have to be placed in every single category because, again, you are in charge of principal photography. So anything visually that we see comes from the DP. Okay, so hopefully that made a little sense, but that is the role of the DP. So don't think that you're just in charge of camera. You're in charge of lighting and how things should be lit and why, the intentionality of it. And you're all the way down to post-production of, the color and making sure that the story is still being told through the colorist, through the editing, because you can lose a lot of that in post. And so essentially you're from the beginning, when they come up with the concept and they find a director, most times you're either the first or the second person that they call. Either they call you first and they call the director, or they call the director because the director may have their own specific DP. But you're the first or the second person that they call because everything else follows. My experience when I came in my first job as a DP, because I had been a filmmaker in a one-man band, I was still doing medium task, but never to the point where could call myself a DP. Now, I think what really intimidated me was, one, again, learning that I was a part of every aspect and having to know and think like every single department head. So if I'm talking to the production designer, I have to think like them and I have to work with them. When I'm talking to the lighting and the gaffer, I have to think like them and know what I want lighting wise. You know what I mean? So and when I'm talking to the director, I have to kind of think like them as well and know what I want from the DP standpoint, but also that connection with the director. So I didn't know that because when I was doing it, I was just shooting. But that was my job, to know all of these aspects and be able to communicate and connect with all of these people, in their department. And so, because they're going to come to you because, again, you're over principal photography, you're over all the visuals. And that was the first intimidating thing. The second one was having a team. Like, I was so used to being a one-man band and doing everything on my own that having a team, I felt like I'm not doing nothing. I need to be doing something. But like, no, you need to be looking at everything, letting everybody play their part. And you're just making sure that everything is according to plan. And so you have to, the biggest thing is communication. Getting your camera operators, getting your gaffer and your key grip, and making sure they know, communicating with them beforehand and making sure that they know, what's at hand. So like for me now, the first thing I do when I get hired is I find my gaffer, first and foremost. And after I find my gaffer, we talk, about the project. And if I have all the information, we go into how I want it to be lit. Then the gaffer can go and find their key grip, and they can also go and they know they can pull all the lights that we discussed. And like, even come back. I love collaborative gaffers, and even come back and say, this is what I was thinking. We can do this. We can do this. The second thing I do is I find my camera team. If I need a camera operator, or my first AC. My first AC, I'm going to work with making sure that we have all the camera gear. The camera gear works. We have everything we need for shoot days to just make sure everything runs smoothly with camera. And so they're pretty much, the first AC is pretty much over the camera department, and they're gonna go and make sure that they, rig everything up for a prep day, make sure that we have everything camera-wise, make sure that everything works and connects, all of those things. And so those are the things that I do in pre-production to make sure that production runs smoothly. So a lot of pre-production comes when you're a DP and you're a part of a lot of pre-production. You're a part of all of those calls, all of those meetings. And so it's so much bigger than you just shooting. Those are the things to look for when you're a newbie. Get better at your pre-production. Even as a one-man band, start developing a process of pre-production even now. Start coming up with the treatment for every idea you might have, or come up with a mood board or storyboard for every idea that you might have, because then when you have to do it as a DP, you have already created a process and a workflow to do that. And not even just that. Sometimes as a one-man band, if you have a project, find ways to come up with a team, even if you can do it on your own, because then you start building and learning how to build that communication with the different people that need to be a part of your team. Some of the entry-level jobs would be get into doing behind the scenes if you can, whether it's photo or video, because that helps you get on set to where you can just see how things go and ask questions. At first, I was just shooting behind the scenes for my friend, my mentor, who was a photographer, and he threw my name out. And so, again, that goes back to being a kind person. The more kind you are and your work speaks for itself, the more people are going to want to throw your name out there. And to be honestly, this industry is word of mouth. It's not just, you having good work, but it's really word of mouth. Getting in as a focus puller, or getting in as, a PA. Even though you get in a PA, do your best. Because again, you get in and you do your best, and then when an opportunity arises and they know that you want to do this, they'll call you. Rental houses are really good too. If you work for a camera rental house, you meet a lot of people who are clearly going to be on sets, and just network with them as well. And that's a good way to get into the industry, because you're learning about cameras, you're learning about how to rig cameras, you're learning about all these camera accessories. So working at a camera rental house would be good as well. And then the more you talk about it, you join these communities, your name just goes forth, and you just always got to put yourself out there. And again, be humble, take the jobs, even if it's not a lot of pay. If you don't have a resume, if you've never been on set, who are you to say, I need this money? Like, you need the experience. And sometimes experience is better than money. And I'm not saying take every job that's free, but like figure out what that looks like for you. I think it's okay to be a shy introvert as a director, but at some point you do have to kind of speak up. And that doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert, because to be honest, directors come in many forms. Like, you could be a director and there's some directors who rely heavily on their AD, and there are some directors who like, nah, I can do what I need to do. But there's a lot of directors that rely more on their AD, and so that way they can focus on talent. And so, it's a one-on-one thing where they're focusing on talent, and they're focusing on, just making sure that talent can do what they're do, and that talent's good and can bring what they need to bring. And the AD focuses on everything else. So the AD, talks with the DP and like, hey, how much more time you got? Even ADs are the ones that be like, action. ADs are the ones that like, all right, we got 10 minutes. Like the ADs essentially are the ones that need to be more extroverted, to be honest with you, because they still have to talk to all the departments. They have to talk to the DP. They have to yell out, all right, guys, we're going for another take. That's not the director, depending on like the level that you're at. But like most ADs have to be extroverted. I've been around some introverted directors. But again, you do have to a certain level, like know when you got to show up and show out. But to me, I feel like the ADs, if you are introverted director, you need to have a really good extroverted AD if that's what you want your process to be. But I don't think you should focus on being an introvert or extrovert. I think there are going to be times where you're like, oh, I want to say something to people. I want to say something to, whatever. And there's be times where you'll let your AD do your thing. But as a director, I would say what's more important is being able to, whether you're introverted or extroverted, being able to communicate and get what you need from your talent and get what you need from your DP and still know how to communicate. I would say that's important. DP etiquette, learn film terminology. I know it's hard because the only way to learn these things is when you're on set, but I actually have a couple Instagram reels that show the film terminology. And honestly, there's a lot, so it's really, I could try to get into it, but some of them are like learn blocking. Knowing that blocking should be one of the first things you do before you bring the camera in on set. You go on set and you go to the scene that you're shooting, if you're shooting like a film or something, and you guys are about to shoot a scene, the first thing you want to do is do blocking. You want to know how the actors are going to come in. You want them to play out their scene. It could be at 50%. It could be at 80%. It doesn't necessarily always have to be at 100%. And you might hear the AD say, hey, give me 35. Give me 35%. Give me 50%. And so usually they'll do a blocking so you can know, how things are going to be, where they're going to go. Your first AC can maybe mark what they need to mark. And then you bring the cameras in because now you know the positions of where they're going to be. So you can bring the cameras in and now you know where the lights need to be, where the stands need to be. So the first thing I would say is blocking. Blocking is important. And I think people overlook it. Especially when you're shooting films, blocking is key. So I would say, learn blocking as well as like, you hear the film terminology, it's a wrap. That means we're like, the film is done, we're done. Martini means it's the last shot. Back to one means go back to the beginning of the take. There's just a lot of film terminology that you want to learn. And again, check out, I can do a video all on film terminology for y'all, but check out my Instagram reels. I have the links below where you can just write the different film terminology. And there's also websites that have the film terminology. And I think that is really good to learn because that's when you're going to learn like certain things. You don't want to be a newbie with this. When people are saying points, you don't want to still be in the way and they're saying points and they need you to get out the way. So a certain film terminology that also teaches you etiquette. And it teaches you these terms so you can know what you need to do and how you need to maneuver on set. As far as training, the best way to train is to get under somebody that's already doing it. For me, when I first started, I reached out to a DP. His name was Justin. And I was like, yo, I see you on set. I want to be on set. How can I help? Even if I have to start at the PA level. I think people think about being a PA and they scratch it automatically, but most DPs were PAs. And so when you want to talk about that training, like that's training. Start from the bottom and go up to the top. And you don't always have to start as a PA. You can start as a first AC. There are a lot of first ACs that became DPs. There are a lot of gaffers who became DPs. And so like, you may not be able to dive right into being a DP, but there are reasons why you should start a little under. And so that training is really just trying to find people who may be in your city or your town or may be virtual that you can talk to and ask questions, and then take that to your town or your city and figure out how to build a community from that, and then just grow in that way and train and like continue to get on YouTube, continue to like research. But really the thing that changed me was being able to work with Justin and ask as many questions as I could. He was able to put me in these scenarios where I was constantly on set, and the more he grew, the more he taught me, and he literally became a film mentor for me. And so now I have a community where I can ask other DPs questions if I'm, new to something and like learn from them. And then even if you know people who are producers, if you know people who are directors, maybe instead of always asking DPs, oh, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? I never really hear people who are trying to grow as a DP reach out to producers or reach out to directors. And I know you could say, well, that's not what I want to be. But it's actually important to learn from them as well, and not just the DP, because you have to learn how to communicate with them. So I'll reach out to director and be like, what is certain things that you look for in your DP? Reach out to producer, be like, what kind of terminology do I need to know when I'm talking to a producer? That makes you be a good DP as well, because you're reaching out to a production designer like, hey, what kind of conversations do we need to have, with you being a production designer and me being a DP, to make sure that this works out. Like, you need to be asking all the department heads the questions even now, so that when you become a DP, you kind of already know this lingo and how to communicate to everybody. So don't just ask DPs all the time, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? And then you get on set and you know how to do those things, but you don't know how to talk to nobody. You don't even know what they're talking about. And they're coming and asking you all these questions because you just focus so much on the shooting aspect. I didn't go to college for filmmaking. I was very self-taught, so my path is a little different. I started off doing behind the scenes because I met somebody on Craigslist, and it just went crazy. So I think if you went to school for filmmaking in college, you should have made connections and networked your tail off. And so I think the best thing to do is to network, go to events, go to panels, go to film festivals, meet people, connect with people. That would be the best way. Also, LinkedIn is still here, guys. Like, I know we focus on Instagram and all these, but LinkedIn is still here, where you can literally go on there and start building community from there. And that's where people get hired. Instagram and all that is cool, but people getting hired off of LinkedIn. And so the best way would be to put your resume out there. Again, a lot of this industry is word of mouth. And so just let people know what you're trying to do. Let people know where you are. Make sure you have your website together. A lot of people think their websites are obsolete, and they're not. People still look at my website when they want to hire me. They're like, do you have a website? Oh, we checked out your website. We love your website. So please have a website. Instagram is not a website. Please get you a nice, clean, and simple website to showcase your work. But LinkedIn is good. Networking, talking to people, letting the world know what you want to do. All that's going to come back in your favor. Or go to these websites, right? Go to these websites of some of these like smaller productions and see how you can work as a PA for them on sets. Now, for me, again, I can only go off experience, and everybody's experience is different. But the way that I built connections was through Instagram. Like I said, I reached out to Justin on Instagram. Even when I first moved to LA 12 years ago, I was on Craigslist. I reached out to a photographer to buy his lens, and he ended up being a celebrity photographer. And I was like, if you ever need BTS, hit me up. And he started hitting me up, and he was working with these big people. And so he threw my name out. So I would say the best way to build connections is be a good person, be a kind person, reach out to people, network with people, but don't come at it solely to receive something from them. I think what we've been missing is just learn how to not expect to receive something from people and just be a friend, right? Like, nowadays, it's hard to tell if you're a friend or if you're just trying to be my friend for a certain reason. And so really learning how to build deeper connections outside of just being set buddies. And so me and Justin, the first guy the guy who I hit up about being on set with him, he's like my mentor. He's like a brother to me now. And I call him for everything, even outside of business. I'm like, what is guys thinks? Why do guys think this way? Or if I'm going through something, I'll call him. He's like a brother at this point, but he started off as me reaching out to him, but we've actually developed a friendship through that. And so it doesn't always need to end at just work. Sometimes it should end at just work, but sometimes it also it can go deeper, and that's okay. And so I do have a lot of friendships with some of my friends that's in the industry on a deeper level. And then I have some that I don't have on a deeper level, but we all respect each other. We all show up for each other, whether it's business or not. And the only way to build those deeper connections is by not stopping at the filmmaking level of this is what you can do for me, and figuring out a way to show up for people outside of just filmmaking. And so that's how I would say build connections and friends in the film space. But again, LinkedIn, reaching out to people on Instagram, those are ways, going to these events, those are ways to build connections and network with people, and just show them that you're not so surfaced, and don't just have these ulterior motives and intentions. Be a good friend and a good person, and show that you just don't want to take, but also give. So I would say that's how to build connection, is just to not focus on just taking all the time, but also giving. And yeah, that to me that also coincides with being a DP. Like, just all together, you just want to make sure that you are a good, well-rounded person. And it's not just about one job. Like, you want to build connections. And when you build connections, you don't just get hired at that one job. People always want to continue to hire you because you continue to show that it's so much deeper than just this job or just this pay. You've actually building connections with people. So most of the people who I work with on a regular basis is because I have connections with them. So hopefully this all helped. I just wanted to give a little bit more soft skills to y'all instead of just like because I feel like no one talks about that transition of going from a one-man band to being a DP, and it's scary. But once you get in and you develop that and it becomes like second nature, you know, after that, you're just learning how to strengthen those areas that you're weak in. You're just learning how to, you know, increase your workflow and increase your efficiency and building a great team. And, you know, going from there, we're all still students. I'm still a student. Your favorite DP, they'll still say that they're still students and they're still learning. So it's a never ending learning situation. And so hopefully this helped. If you still have any more questions, leave them down below. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. And I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.